Welcome to another CARB Hall of Fame induction nominee, and we are here with Tiger Bob Williams. Tiger, I want to tell you, it's quite a pleasure to have the opportunity to come out and be able to sit down with you and talk just a little bit about your career. And I think your career probably had a start maybe just a little bit different than what some of the other racers have had in Kansas City, and that yours started actually behind the fence.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived right up on top of the hill from Olympic Stadium, and I used to hear them race cars down there on Sunday night, and it was kind of intriguing, so started going down there and climbing the fence, and then got caught climbing the fence, so I had to end up getting a Social Security card so I could go sell concessions and get inside and watch them. And then a few years later, my brother got a race car, so I got to go in with him in the pits.
That probably had to really fuel the fires, though, when I think it was 1957 your brother started racing, and like you say, you were involved with that, so that probably just added to it. It just wanted to make you do it even more.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was kind of like throwing gas on the fire.
And it was going to become quite a blaze too, wasn't it?
Yeah, he used to let me pack the track, and sometimes when we'd go out of town, he'd let me drive the car and practice and stuff. I think the first time I got to drive was Beverly Speedway in St. Joe, Missouri, on a Sunday afternoon. He let me drive one of his cars. He had two of them, and I got the hot lap it. But I think I was 15, and that pretty much did it. I knew what I really wanted to do after that.
Yeah, had the feel in your hands and the foot on the gas pedal. There was no going back after that. When you actually got started in racing, though, from what I understand, of course I remember this from, I don't want to say my childhood, but early adult years, was you parked cars downtown for, was it Albright or Allright?
Allright parking. I needed to make some money so I could buy a car that was sitting out on 40 Highway that used to belong to Bob Burns that Bud Honeycutt used to drive, and they told me about it, but it didn't have a motor in it, so I had to save enough money to buy a motor. Pappy Weld was going to do the machine work on it, and I was going to buy the cam and block and have him bore it out and all that stuff, so I needed about $800, so I had to work. Went to school in the daytime and went down there at night and parked cars.
Yeah. I was going to say, boy, that really was the center of Kansas City at that time, though. I mean, all of the theaters, there were no megaplexes or anything like that. I mean, all the theaters were downtown, and so people, really did have a lot of cars to park down there. So you ended up with $800, get the motor and the car.
Yeah. Me and Kenny Stoffus and Dean Venable worked on it, and we went racing.
Yeah. I don't exactly want to say the first race, but that first season, was racing what you thought it would be?
It was even harder. It looked easy from the grandstands, but it was a lot harder. I know first time I went out in hot laps over at Riverside, I drove it in clear to the flagman, and I let off of it because I knew I couldn't make it to the corner, and everybody went by full bore. And I thought, oh my God, I'm a good place to see a hell of a wreck. And they went right on around the corner and right down the backstretch. I thought, how they do that?
Learning opportunity.
Yeah, it's what's called the learning curve.
Around 1960, I think is the date, you started driving for Pappy Weld. And Pappy always kind of had a legendary status in Kansas City racing, and you drove for him. Was it as difficult to drive for Pappy as what everybody says?
Oh, it wasn't difficult at all as long as you won and didn't tear up nothing. If you tore up his race car or his tow vehicle, you would tend to replace you.
Yeah, and how many times did that happen?
Oh, I don't know. How many times would you say, Sam?
Numerous.
I'd get fired, but I'd always get rehired because he was a little bit stubborn, but he wanted perfection. He built a perfect race car, and he wanted a perfect driver, and it hardly ever happens.
I was going to say, that's tough on the racetrack. You don't always have that much control. during this same time frame, and I heard this from a fellow racer of yours, from what I understand, you were running in a heat race, and you ended up winning it. The only problem is you did that without the body.
Oh, that was in Howard Warren's car. My brother was driving a sprint car down to Springfield, Missouri, and he wanted me to run his car in the heat race at Riverside, and he'd come back and run the feature. And it was Howard Warren's number 73, and I went out and I was leading the heat race, and I came down for the white flag, and the body just flew off of it. So I just kept going, and I came around and finished, and the body landed up high out of the cushion, so it was out of the way. So that was the first race I ever won, and then my brother came and drove it in the feature and started in the back, and I think he won it.
I'll be darned. That's got to be quite an experience. Also, during your career, you do make it out to I-70, and I believe you're running a stock car out there, if I remember right. And you do win a 300-lap race at I-70. Now, that had to be quite a venture for a guy that was used to running, 30, 35 laps and the race is over?
Yeah. Well, after my brother got killed in 1969, I wanted to go NASCAR racing, but I never had any payment experience, so I went and bought a car. Me and everybody I know gave me money or sponsored with me, and we went to Toledo, Ohio, and I bought a car, and I ran it out to I-70 for a year. Dick Witt was my mechanic, and I seen after 1 year that I wasn't going to be able to afford that. So the next year I got hired by Gary Emick and Richard Sharkey, and I drove for them a couple of years, and we got lucky and won a 300-lapper out there.
Must have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Of course, that's a long race, 300 laps.
Well, they're pretty easy to drive, but they're just uncomfortable because they're so hot inside. There's no air in them.
Probably 1969 is a year that I'm sure you'll never forget for a couple of reasons. One, 46 feature wins, 3 track championships, but also in the same year you do lose your brother Kenny. So I'm sure at the end of that year, man, you had to really have had some looking back that was emotional as far as, man, what a year, but also you didn't have your brother with you.
Yeah, there's not a day goes by I don't think about Kenny. I have an awful lot to be thankful for things that he taught me.
And that season, that had to just been terrific too, though. I mean, 46 wins, man. That's a career. That's a career for a lot of people, and you do that in 1 year.
Well, I was very lucky. There was a lot of times on the white flag I'd be running second. I think, well, either Dick Sutcliffe or Joey Saldana or Rayleigh Goodwin or somebody. Well, they're going to win it, and I'm going to run second. They'd blow a tire, break a rear end, blow a motor.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Look at this. Oh, look what I got. And if I remember right, you were driving for Jack Cunningham.
Jack Cunningham and Carl Paul. They both owned the car. Jack Cunningham was a mechanic.
Once again, what an accomplishment, but also, like I say, just a little bad stuff going on in that same year. 3 times, Knoxville Nationals, you finished second. Had to be a little bit frustrating. If I remember right, I got the dates here, 63, 67, 69.
I think I ran third in 69.
Okay.
I think Kenny Grice won it, and Jan Opperman was second, and I was third. But I did run second to Thad Dozier, and I ran second to Richard. What was his name? Reichert, Jerry Reichert.
Jerry Reichert, okay. Still quite an accomplishment, man. A tough track. Of course, this was all wingless.
Oh, yeah.
All wingless back before we had that. We're getting down close to the end here, as much as I hate to say it. If you could look back, would there be anything you could do any differently, or is there something you really miss about it?
Well, I think I was born at the perfect time. Right now, you've got to have so much money to be competitive.
And do you miss the camaraderie of the drivers and stuff like that? I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of good times for you guys.
Like I said, there was good times and there was bad times.